Breaking news now. The body of a young girl found in the trunk of a Tesla.
Detectives have been working the case. They now believe they have a clearer picture of when she died and who may possibly be responsible.
They are looking at singer David in connection with the death of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas.
He stabbed her multiple times and stood by while she
cutting up with a chainsaw.
Her mom also added she had a boyfriend.
There was a sexual relationship. They met when she was just 11 years old.
The LAPD has arrested the singer David for the murder of Celeste Rivas.
Singer David returns to court this morning for his hearing in his murder case.
A chainsaw ordered on Amazon, a blue inflatable pool purchased under a fake name, and a 14-year-old who never made it home. All of it connected to one person, a 20-year-old singer who was, at the time, headlining his own national tour, doing radio interviews, and dropping his debut album. His name is David, and if you've been on TikTok or Spotify in the last 3 years, you've probably heard his music without even knowing it. Romantic Homicide, Here With Me, songs with billions of streams, but the story behind the artist and the story about his car is one of the most disturbing things we've ever covered on this YouTube channel, because this isn't just about what happened, it's about how many people had a chance to stop it and they didn't. So today, on our second video on this YouTube channel in 3 years, we're gonna get to everything: the rise, the relationship, the evidence, and the question that nobody in his circle seemed willing to ask. Now, before we get to this content, we just revived this channel. We want to do deep dives on topics just like this. We're trying to get back into the algorithm, but I have a good feeling that this video is going to get demonetized. To help us stay in the algorithm, if you could drop a like and take a moment to subscribe, because we're trying to get this channel to 100,000 subscribers, and we want to keep doing this for you guys, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's get to the video. David Anthony Burke was born on March 28th, 2005 in Queens, New York. His parents, Dawood and Colleen Burke, were strict Christians. His mom was a teacher. His dad worked at a law firm. Growing up, David wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. No Lady Gaga, no Drake, just Bach, Beethoven, and gospel. He'd sneak around with a little iPod Touch, downloading songs off of iTunes behind their backs, but that was about as rebellious as it got. After 7th grade, his parents pulled him out of school entirely and put him on a fully online homeschool program. Not the group kind where kids still meet up, the kind where you sit in front of a computer by yourself. No classmates, no school dances, no social life. David himself called the transition tragic and said he begged to go back to school almost every day. So what did he do with all that time alone? Well, he played Fortnite. Hours and hours of Fortnite. He started a YouTube channel making gaming montages, trying to blow up as the next big streamer. And for a while, he was actually building something. He had a small following, doing decent content, and then one day, every video he'd ever made got hit with copyright strikes overnight because of the music he was using in his edits. He called his mom crying, and she would tell him something that would change everything for David.
If you're getting copyrighted, just make your own music.
So that's what David did. He recorded his first song into his iPhone, put it on SoundCloud, and it started getting plays. His second song, You and I, now has over 94 million streams. He tagged it on Twitter with the caption, "First Fortnite player to use his own song in a video." And suddenly, every gaming creator on the platform was using his music because it was royalty free. Then came TikTok. David started posting pitched up covers of popular songs. David would rack up 500,000 followers, and then he dropped Romantic Homicide in July of 2022, and it went absolutely nuclear. The song peaked at number 4 on Billboard's Hot Rock and Alternative Song chart, earned multiple platinum certifications, and got him signed to Interscope Records, one of the biggest labels in the entire world. His debut album, Withered, dropped in April of 2025. It sold 30,000 units in the first week and hit number 13 on the Billboard 200. He was headlining his own tour, performing at Coachella, 20 years old, with a multi-million-dollar career ahead of him, and then it all fell apart in the worst way imaginable. On September 5th, 2025, a dented 2023 Tesla Model Y was towed from a street called Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills after residents reported it abandoned. The car had been sitting there since late July, just a few hundred feet from a home David had been renting. 3 days later, on September 8th, the manager of the tow yard, not just any worker, but the actual manager, noticed something was coming from the vehicle. A strong smell and flies. According to the LA County District Attorney's Office, when LAPD D4VD detectives opened up the frunk, they found a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside was a severely decomposed head and torso. Underneath that, a separate bag containing dismembered arms and legs. The Tesla was registered to David Anthony Burke. David. 8 days later, the remains were identified through dental records as a 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a girl from Lake Elsinore, California, about 75 miles southeast of Hollywood. She had been reported missing by her family multiple times. Her body was so severely decomposed that investigators couldn't determine her eye color, and her weight was listed at just 71 pounds. September 8th, the day she was found, was one day after what would have been her 15th birthday. And here's what made this immediately suspicious. At the time that her body was discovered, David was on tour. He had left Los Angeles at the end of July for his Withered World Tour. Surveillance footage later confirmed that he was the last person seen driving the Tesla on July 29, 2005. Right before he got on the tour bus, he parked the car on Bluebird Avenue, walked away, and left for months. And that entire time, according to prosecutors, Celeste's body was inside. Once investigators started pulling the thread on how David and Celeste were connected, the picture that emerged was deeply disturbing. According to prosecution documents, David and Celeste first made contact online in January of 2022. She was 11 years old. He was 16, about to turn 17. They reportedly met through Fortnite, which tracks because that was David's entire social world during his homeschool years. He's talked openly about using squad fills to talk to strangers and letting people vent their life problems to him through a gaming headset.
I would go on Discord and I would go on Fortnite and I would go on like squad fills and I just let people talk to me and just tell me about their lives, because like most of these people that play video games the same way I do, they're going to it as an escape. So I was just being an open door and an open outlet for like my peers and my friends to kind of just like vent to me about different things in their like personal lives and stuff like that. And I would basically just take their lives and write songs about them and write songs for them. And they didn't even know it.
Prosecutors allege that by November of 2023, the relationship had become sexual. Celeste was 13 and David was 18. Now here's where the system failed for the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. In February of 2024, Celeste's family reported her missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Investigators went through her phone records and found a number connected to David. So on February 17th, 2024, law enforcement called him directly. During that call, David told him that the last contact that he had with Celeste was around February 13th or 14th, and he claimed he didn't know she was a minor or that she'd been reported missing. Later that same evening, officers showed up to where he was staying in West Hollywood for a welfare check. They told him directly to his face that Celeste was a 13-year-old runaway, and David responded by saying he only met her once in November of 2023 and that he was unaware of her age. But here's the part that makes you question everything that he said. According to prosecutors, during that same interaction, David showed deputies a yearbook photo of Celeste that he had saved on his phone. So you're telling officers that you barely know this girl, but you have her yearbook photos saved to your phone? That detail alone should have set off alarms. Celeste returned home shortly after that, but according to prosecutors, David didn't stop. Despite being told directly by law enforcement that she was 13 years old, he allegedly drove to Lake Elsinore, found a student at Celeste's school, and paid them around $1,000 to give her a phone he'd purchased so they could stay in contact. Her parents had taken her phone away to cut off communication, and he went behind their backs. And throughout 2024, prosecutors say Celeste spent significant time with David. Summer weekends at his Hollywood Hills home, trips to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Her family reported her missing again on March 19th and again on April 5th, 2024. That's 3 separate missing persons reports from the same family to the same department in the span of 2 months, and each time the system reset. Nobody connected the dots between a missing 13-year-old girl and the adult man that law enforcement had already contacted about her. Think about what this looks like from the family's perspective, guys. You report your daughter missing in February. Officers go talk to a guy who admits that he was in contact with her. They tell him she's 13, and then she goes missing again in March and missing again in April. And nobody seems to be asking the obvious question: who is she going to? Celeste's mother later told investigators that she knew her daughter had a boyfriend named David. Her brother Matthew told reporters that the night she disappeared for the first time, she was supposedly on her way to see a movie with someone named David. The family didn't know the full extent of what was happening, but they knew enough to keep calling it in, and the system didn't connect their reports to the man who had already been identified. Investigators later recovered text messages between David and Celeste. According to court filings, those messages included references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B. One message from Celeste in March of 2025 said, according to prosecutors, that she wanted more than what the situation had become. All they did was sleep together and hang out, and she wanted more for herself. Prosecutors also say that they found explicit photographs on David's iCloud account that they describe as a significant amount of CP. They also found something else on Celeste's remains that told its own story. She had a tattoo on her ring finger, David's name, and two of her fingers, the ring finger and pinky finger, had been amputated and were never recovered. Prosecutors allege this was done specifically to distance her from him because one of those fingers had that tattoo. Now, here's what makes this case way different than other cases. The signs weren't hidden. They were everywhere. His fans saw them, his chat saw them, his own Discord server was talking about it openly, and nothing happened. In January of 2024, David did a Twitch stream, and Celeste was right there, visible on camera, wearing a hoodie and glasses. The chat immediately started going off. Messages like "pray for his career, chat," and "you're done for, bro," and "no, you're going on the Epstein list, caught you in 4K. David read the comments out loud, and according to the stream clip, Celeste said something that nearly exposed everything. David responded by telling his moderators to delete everything, every clip, every VOD, all of it.
Oh my, delete everything, delete everything, everything goes.
In that same clip, David says this to Celeste.
Where's your media
I personally don't.
I media trained you.
And then she says something. The exact words are a little unclear from the audio, but it's enough to make David panic and end the stream. Think about that phrase for a second. I media trained you. That's the language of someone who knows what they're doing is wrong and is coaching the other person on how to hide it. And the Discord server was even wilder. A now deleted user, widely suspected to be Celeste, posted a photo showing a tattoo of David's name on her ring finger with what appeared to be a wedding ring. That same user posted what looked like backstage photos of her and David lying down together. In one screenshot, David allegedly claimed that he and this user had a kid on the way. This was July of 2024. And on Reddit, weeks before the body was even found, a user posted, "This guy's a PDF from what I've heard. My sister, who's now in the 9th grade, told me that he was dating an 8th grader. Let's just call her C. She would go on trips with him to LA. Then there's the music itself. Romantic Homicide, the song that made him famous, has a music video where he puts a body in the trunk of a car. The song's central lyric isn't just about a romantic ending. David himself explained in a Genius interview that the hook is written in the active first person. His own mother told him that the song was too violent and didn't want him to release it. He put it out anyway, and it became his biggest hit. He also created an alter ego called Itami, which is Japanese for pain, that he described in multiple interviews as a character who was basically an evil version of himself, a detective who committed murders and then investigated them. He said, and I'm quoting from an interview here,
"I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself. He's basically an agent of chaos and kind of my alter ego."
This wasn't a one-off joke. He built entire music videos around this concept, complete with blindfolds and bloody shirts. And here's something that came out through his own Discord messages that makes all of this even more unsettling. David reportedly disclosed a pattern of consuming gore content, real violence, fully uncensored, starting around the age of 14. He described going from an initial shock response to getting so desensitized that he didn't even cringe anymore, and he framed it intentionally. He said he watched gore to disconnect the part of his brain that feels empathy to the wrong things. That's not a teenager stumbling across something dark on the internet and being horrified. That is someone who is deliberately training themselves to not feel anything once they see violence. And he was doing all of this at 14 years old. And then there's the music itself, which in hindsight reads like a blueprint. In Decide, which he released in 2022 when Celeste would have been 11, David sings "Save Your Tears" 7 years. 7 years from then, Celeste would have been 18. In Romantic Homicide, the song that launched his career, the central imagery is literally putting a body in the trunk of a car. David released that song on September 7th, Celeste's birthday. He also reportedly recorded a song called Celeste in December of 2023 that referenced a girl with his name tattooed on her, a detail that later became real when Celeste had his name inked on her finger. All of this was public, all of this was available, and people just treated it like it was was artistry. According to prosecutors, the timeline of what happened starts the night before. April 22nd, 2025, David and Celeste got into a lengthy argument over text. Celeste had found out about David's relationships with other women, and she was upset. Prosecutors say David had led her to believe that they had a future together, that she was his girlfriend, his partner, and finding out that he was seeing other people broke something in her. She allegedly threatened to expose their relationship in a way that would destroy his career, and the timing couldn't have been worse for David. His debut album, Withered, was set to drop in 2 days. He had a multi-million-dollar career, active endorsements, and a world tour booked. Prosecutors allege that he ended Celeste's life to protect that career. That's the financial gain special circumstance in the charges. On April 23rd, prosecutors say that David ordered an Uber at approximately 8:40 p.m. to pick Celeste up from Lake Elsinore and bring her to his Hollywood Hills home. The ride was completed around 10 p.m. Celeste was dropped off at the house, and then approximately 20 minutes later, prosecutors allege David started sending text messages asking where she was. According to the prosecution, those messages were fake. They weren't real attempts to find her. They were a deliberate effort to create the appearance that she never arrived, because by 10:20 p.m., prosecutors allege that Celeste lost her life. The prosecution says David stabbed her multiple times. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide caused by multiple penetrating wounds to the torso. And then, at approximately 11:30 p.m., investigators say he left the house and drove north on the 101 freeway towards Santa Barbara County, all while continuing to text and call her phone as if he didn't know where she was. Prosecutors say those calls weren't genuine. They were calculated to build an alibi. He returned home early the next morning, April 24th, and then he went to a radio interview for the album release. That same evening, he attended his album release party. Within 24 hours of what prosecutors say was the end of a 14-year-old girl, David was doing press and celebrating at a party. One more detail from the Santa Barbara trips: Celeste's U.S. passport card was found by a Caltrans worker in January of 2026 off of State Route 154 near Lake Cachuma, the exact area prosecutors say David was driving to that night and on at least 2 subsequent trips. What prosecutors allege happened over the next several weeks is where this case crosses from horrifying into something that's even harder to process. Because according to the court documents, David didn't just try to hide what happened. He methodically ordered supplies to deal with the aftermath, and he did it under a fake name. Here's the timeline that was laid out by the prosecution's evidence brief. April 24th, the very next day, David allegedly ordered a shovel from Home Depot. He delivered it to his house via Postmates. May 1st, 2 chainsaws from Amazon, delivered the same day. May 5th, a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable kiddie pool, all from Amazon. July 7th, a burn cage, also from Amazon, all purchased under the fake name Victoria Mendez. According to prosecutors, the blue inflatable pool was used inside the garage to contain blood during the dismemberment. The chainsaws were allegedly used to dismember the body, and when forensic specialists examined Celeste's remains, they found small blue plastic fragments, which prosecutors say matched the inflatable pool that had been delivered to David's home. And the burn cage? Steve Fisher, who is the private investigator hired by the owner of the Hollywood Hills rental property, said something interesting about this. He said the burn cage, which was capable of reaching 1,600 degrees, was found still in the box, never opened. The chainsaw was found with its protective sheath still on. Fisher's assessment was blunt. Whatever happened here, this wasn't a finalized plan. She was not meant to be left in that Tesla. The plan got upended. And during that time, people around David started to notice something was off. Prosecutors say friends, business associates, and others noticed a strong smell of decay coming from his home and his vehicle. And according to prosecutors, he lied about it. He made excuses. Nobody called the police. Inside David's garage, investigators found blood evidence. DNA testing confirmed those samples matched Celeste's genetic profile. The evidence, according to prosecutors, was consistent with the dismemberment having taken place inside that garage, in that same inflatable pool. Then on July 29th, David drove the Tesla for the last time, parked it on Bluebird Avenue around the corner from his home, and got on the tour bus. He left for his Withered World Tour, and as far as the public could tell, everything was fine. He performed shows, he met fans, he posted on social media, and playing casual Fortnite matches on his account. All while, according to prosecutors, a 14-year-old 15-year-old girl's body was decomposing in his car 2,000 miles away. It wouldn't be until September 5th that the Tesla got towed, and 3 more days before anyone opened the frunk. From April 23rd to September 8th, that's 138 days, nearly 5 months. And during that entire stretch, according to the prosecution's narrative, David Burke lived his life as if nothing had happened. He performed, he traveled, he did interviews, he played video games. The only thing that changed was the car wasn't at his house anymore. And that raises the question that I think makes this case so hard to process. How? How do you do a radio interview the morning after what prosecutors say that you did? How do you attend your own album release party? How do you go on national tour and stand on stage and watch your audience sing lyrics along with you about romantic destruction and ending your partner's life? How do you perform under those circumstances? There are psychologists who've weighed in on this publicly, and the consensus is pretty consistent. The behavioral pattern described in the prosecution's timeline is consistent with elevated psychopathic traits, not in the Hollywood sense, in the clinical sense. A significant reduced capacity for guilt, anxiety, and emotional disruption after committing violence. Combine that with what David himself described as years of deliberately desensitizing himself to violence through consuming gore content, and the psychological infrastructure to do what prosecutors allege and then keep functioning was, at least according to experts who've analyzed the case, already in place long before April of 2025. One of the biggest questions I have in this case isn't just why David did what he did, it's why people around him who knew didn't do anything about it. Prosecutors didn't just go after David. They convened 3 separate grand juries and called witness after witness from David's inner circle. Friends, business associates, family members, all of them brought in to testify about what they knew and when they knew it. David's manager, Robert Morgenroth, the general manager of Mogul Vision, David's label, and the president of his touring company testified for multiple days. And according to TMZ, a reporter overheard Morgenroth on the phone with his attorney in the courthouse hallway afterward. He said the prosecutor, Beth Silverman, was very pushy on why I didn't call the police. His response, according to that overheard conversation, he said, "I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour." Bro, what? He just wanted to keep the tour going? And he wasn't willing to call the police about a teenager who lost her life? Then there's Neo Langston, a streamer and close friend of David's. Neo was subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury and simply didn't show up. He fled to his mother's house in Helena, Montana. In January of 2026, 7 officers showed up and arrested him on a warrant for failing to appear as a witness. He was extradited back to Los Angeles, booked on a $60,000 bail, and eventually testified in February for about 40 minutes. According to TMZ, he answered every question and did not invoke the Fifth Amendment. Investigators later confirmed Neo was not in the car during the Santa Barbara trips, and he was not involved in Celeste's disappearance. But after his testimony, Neo posted on social media calling David a dickhead and saying there's more to the story. That's someone who was in the inner circle, saw something, and now is distancing himself as much as humanly possible. David's own family was dragged in this too. His parents and his brother were all subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury in January of 2026. They fought the subpoenas in Texas, arguing that their due process rights were being violated. They lost. Court documents unsealed during that fight confirmed that David was the target of a murder investigation. Their public response after his arrest through their attorney, his parents said that they were sad and disappointed, but they fully stand behind him and believe that he is innocent. His parents traveled from Texas to LA to support him. After the formal charges were filed, they released another statement. "We are disappointed but not surprised that the district attorney made this decision. David's family stand behind him 100%. Meanwhile, Celeste's family released their first public statement after the arraignment. Through their attorney, Patrick Steinfeld, they said Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste." The family also had to push back on online rumors that David had paid them off. Celeste's father said it directly. "I never had any contact with with this guy, and we haven't received any money from him or anyone in his family. Their attorney described the family as being in indescribable pain, and honestly, it doesn't take a lot to convince me of that. So on April 16, 2026, David Burke was arrested by LAPD at a house on Marmont Avenue, a property that was formerly owned by Sandra Bullock. 4 days later, on April 20th, the LA County DA's office formally charged him with first-degree murder and continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14 and unlawful mutilation of human remains. The charges include special circumstance allegations, murder of a witness and for financial gain, and lying in wait. And there's also a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous weapon, described as a sharp instrument. If convicted as charged, David could potentially lose his life in prison without any possibility of parole. Prosecutors haven't decided yet whether they'll seek the death penalty, though California currently has a moratorium on executions. He pleaded not guilty to everything. His defense attorney, Blair Burke, one of the most high-profile criminal defense lawyers in LA, told the court that we believe that the actual evidence will show that David Burke did not do what he's accused of. The defense has pushed aggressively for a fast preliminary hearing, saying they want to see the evidence to come into the light of day. That hearing was originally set for May 1st, but it was postponed to May 26th after the defense requested more time to review evidence. And here's the part that should concern everyone following this case. Prosecutors say they amassed 40 terabytes of evidence. They've executed 54 search warrants. They have wiretap results. They have material from 3 separate grand juries. They've reviewed David's iCloud, his cell phone, surveillance footage, delivery records, DNA evidence, and forensic analysis. And according to earlier reports, they've only fully reviewed a fraction of the iCloud data so far, meaning there could be significantly more evidence still to come. There's also the federal question. The industry, for the most part, have moved fast to distance itself. Interscope dropped David in 2025. YouTube demonetized his account in April of 2026. Artists like Kali Uchis, Laffy, and Holly Humberstone pulled their collaborations with him from streaming platforms. Epic Games issued refunds to Fortnite players who had purchased in-game items featuring his music. Universal Music Group helped multiple artists scrub their connections to him. Look guys, this is our second story on this channel, but this one's different because the warning signs weren't buried. They were in the music, they were in the Discord, they were in the Twitch chat, they were in the comment section, they were on Reddit weeks before the body was found. Law enforcement had direct contact with David in February of 2024 and told him to his face that Celeste was a 13-year-old runaway. And according to prosecutors, he drove to her school and paid a kid thousands of dollars to give her a phone so they could keep talking. The system that was supposed to protect Celeste failed at every single checkpoint. Riverside County had 3 missing persons reports from the same family about the same girl in 2 months. LAPD had a welfare check on the books. David's name was already flagged in connection to a missing minor. His fans were joking about Epstein flights in his Twitch chat while Celeste sat right next to him on camera. His manager's response to learning about the situation was that calling the police wasn't his responsibility. An entire industry apparatus, label, management, booking agents, touring partners surrounded this person and either didn't see what was happening or didn't want to. And I want to be real for a second. When I say his system has failed, I am not just talking about law enforcement. I'm talking about everything. Twitch didn't flag a stream where a grown man's chat was making Epstein jokes and referring to him being a predator in real time. Discord didn't intervene when a server full of teenagers was openly discussing his relationship. A record label signed him, funded his tour, and promoted his music while his own fans were posting receipts online. When enough people choose not to ask questions, the silence alone becomes permission. Celeste Rivas Hernandez, born on September 7, 2010, to parents who immigrated from El Salvador. She had 2 older siblings and attended Lakeland Village School in Lake Elsinore. Her parents described her as a girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night. She told her family she loved them. Her funeral was held on October 7th, 2025, about a month after her body was found. And the community of Lake Elsinore turned out in large numbers to pay their respects. And according to prosecutors, the last thing that happened to her was getting picked up by an Uber, arriving at the home of someone she trusted, and never leaving. The preliminary hearing starts on May 26th. I'll be covering every single part of it, even if the content gets demonetized. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. This is just our second video on this channel in 3 years. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping her a mic until our next upload.